Good morning, Paul and Bhargav. It's Friday, the 31st of March. Here's the heads up brief for today. For the Southeast Asia production, we covered 22 issues. North Asia, we covered 7 issues. And for the Australasia and Pacific Islands, we covered 6 issues. In South Asia, we covered 14 issues, plus the major issues in Europe, Middle East, and Africa regions.
Okay, excellent. Go ahead. Thank you.
In Indonesia, student protests against the job creation law turned violent in Lampung and Bengkulu yesterday. They will organize demonstrations on the 6th of April again in Jakarta and across the country. The protests were small, but the violence was notable, especially as police sought to blame anarchists who infiltrated the protests, while civil society organizations blamed the police for their heavy-handedness.
Okay, excellent. Thanks.
In Myanmar, the parent company of the garment manufacturer Uniqlo has announced that it will withdraw from the country due to the human rights violations by the military government.
Okay, no surprise there. Thank you.
In Thailand, a police officer was sentenced to 270 years in jail for stealing nearly 162 guns over a period of 2 years from a police station in Nonthaburi. He had sold most of the weapons or pawned them off.
Yeah, you have to worry that over a 2-year period, someone steals 162 guns. Obviously, there's a somewhat weak gun control processes and policies there. That's a real concern, but it reflects on the wider problem that is the Thai police, where they have some of the most exceptional criminal investigators. But overall, the force leaves a lot to be desired. Thanks.
In Papua New Guinea, the acting deputy commissioner of special operations has said that an international drug smuggling syndicate is using the country as a transit point for drugs to Australia. This is after the recent raids in which they discovered that Bulolo in Papua New Guinea was used as a transit point.
Yeah, and of course they arrested the Australian pilot when they arrived back in Australia on a same-day flight. They went all the way to Bulolo and back and tried to fly under the radar. But of course, the radar systems in Northern Australia are incredibly complex for defence purposes. But also you've got flight paths and very limited aircraft landing in a lot of those rural and less than major airports. And the Australian Federal Police and various task force have incredible amounts of intelligence on these bozos that just think they're going to beat the system. Thanks for that.
In South Asia, in India, unrest broke out in places in Gujarat, West Bengal, and Maharashtra yesterday. This is between the Hindu and Muslim communities. This is as a Hindu festival was being observed yesterday, while Ramadan is also ongoing.
The religious tensions within the Indian subcontinent, more specifically in Indian society, is a ubiquitous part. And every year, whenever there is a Hindu festival or a major Muslim festival, there will be flare-ups. I wouldn't consider this a major security threat unless there is a tension. There are tensions building up over the year, similar to 1992 or 2002, when there were major riots across the subcontinent, not just in India. So this shouldn't be a major deterrent.
Right, Margaret. In Karachi, Pakistan, 4 police officers were targeted in a grenade attack yesterday. So this could be terrorists or it could be criminal elements, because there have been increases in the activities of both terrorists and criminal networks in Karachi, especially over the last year.
The city of Karachi is a hub of criminal activity, and in the last 20 years, it has also been a hub of terror recruitment, more specifically by Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan version of Taliban. And Karachi is such a complex city. It has population from all parts of the subcontinent, not just Pakistan. So especially during the migration which happened after partition. Now, this is relevant in terms of overall security paradigm for businesses who are operating within the city. Such violence keep flaring up as and when the terror threat increases. So we need to keep a very close eye on how the terror incidents are happening over the year.
Also, one other point I might add is that a lot of the local companies get into a real bog where they go and select partners for commercial purposes that are very senior in the military, and then they're surprised that there's a massive amount of internal fraud occurring to the point where then when it's raised, the expatriate management gets targeted. So that selection of partners is incredibly important everywhere, but particularly in Karachi. And while that sounds like a basic comment, that is the most frequent issue we deal with, is people flying from the West, going into these environments, spending a week or two being impressed with polite people smiling at them, and then being totally mystified when they end up losing millions and having people's lives threatened. It's something that seriously needs to be delegated to people with appropriate boots on the ground and understanding of the culture, but importantly, have trusted networks that are proven, not assumed. Thanks.
That's a good one, Paul. Moving over to Europe, Middle East, and Africa. So Turkey's parliament yesterday approved Finland's bid for NATO membership. Meanwhile, France will also send a military detachment to Lithuania later this year as part of NATO's mission in the Baltic countries. Lithuania and France have been getting closer since the war broke out.
The Turkish decision to approve the entrance of Finland into NATO is a little surprising. Erdogan had blocked such an entry into NATO by the Nordic countries. Turkey's position on the Ukraine conflict is also quite bewildering because they have advocated for diplomacy with Russia while profiteering from Ukraine's efforts in the conflict. They have supplied thousands of drones to Ukraine. They have profited from it, but at the same time, they had blocked Nordic countries' entrance. So we need to look closely as to where they stand in the entire conflict. Yeah. Turkey has been a rebel within the NATO, but they seem to be buckling under the pressure, Western pressure.
Yes, and so are Finland, and so are a lot of these nations. They're all hedging a bet that Russia's plan to destroy Russia is going to occur, but I'm not sure that the advisors in the CIA and the State Department and the other rudderless vested interests that control the United States strategy have really thought that through. I mean, you don't have to be a great historian to realise what's occurring. And unfortunately, this belief in just total and absolute, unchallenged, unheralded power is something that they all have made their call now. They all are going to have to live by it. So they all better hope that America's got this right. And they also, even if America doesn't actually win, their values are going to be questioned and their motives. So they're all making an enemy out of Russia on the doorstep and all hedging a whole heap of money on the nose for an American win. I'm not sure that that's going to be judged lightly in history 10 years from now. Thanks.
Lastly, in Burkina Faso, authorities announced the resumption of diplomatic relations with North Korea. This comes as Burkina Faso has expelled the French, and Russia is making inroads in the country and the wider region. Chinese and Russian interests in Africa are rising as countries push back against Western and mainly French interests over the colonial history.
Thanks for that. That doesn't really come as a surprise to me.
Thanks, Paul.
Guys, just one other issue. I think it's very interesting that China and France completed their very first yuan settled liquefied natural gas trade on Tuesday. I think we really need to be aware of, the world set out to ensure that you have to use our financial system, but the Ukraine war has been a catalyst to allow major trades in other currencies and swift systems learning that if you make threats, you better understand your power and your coverage. And this is just one of the many issues that's concerning me about the analysis and the intent of America to set up systems that wants everyone to utilise and then assume everyone will beat the same drum. The shenanigans going on between the Democrats and the Republicans and also the complete utter farcical lack of strategic vision in the States is of great concern, particularly when they're trying to bully parts of the world into following or merging cultures that are simply so different and so historically opposed that you can't just force people to blend. The world's seeing, massacres in America, poverty in America, the black-white divide, the disharmony at the political level, the lack of cohesion between lawmakers, the ability to stand on the high ground's somewhat diminished. And as I keep saying, if you want to maintain power, you need to act like a leader, and I'm not sure that they're doing so. This could be a major turning point in history. China's ability to stay calm, stay quiet while they're being, in many ways, persecuted. Many fibs are coming out to blame issues on national security when it's just a matter of trying to keep commercial controllers of grave concern. Thanks. Excellent brief today, Uday, and thanks for your inputs, Bhargav.
Thanks.
Thanks, Uday. Thanks, Paul.